An old photograph, the Caucasus, the late 19th or early 20th century. A man looks directly into the camera. A papakha, Caucasian clothing, a belt, a dagger. Who do you see? A Dagestani? An Azerbaijani? A member of one of the Muslim peoples of the Caucasus? 2 seconds. Now comes the detail that shatters that first impression. This man is Jewish. He could pray in a synagogue, celebrate Passover and Yom Kippur, live within a Jewish family and community, and at the same time look so unmistakably Caucasian that the familiar image of a Jew from the Russian Empire suddenly stops working. How did a Jewish community take on the appearance of the Caucasus without disappearing into it? If you enjoy stories that challenge familiar ideas about the Jewish past, support the video with a like and subscribe. What matters here is understanding what lies behind this photograph. Let us begin with the clothing. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, clothing in the Caucasus could reveal where a person came from, their wealth, and their social position. Mountain Jews lived within that culture. A papakha, a chakeska or similar regional clothing, a belt, and, in some photographs, a weapon, could make a Jewish man look almost indistinguishable from his neighbors. But this is where it is easy to fall into an attractive trap. A dagger does not prove that mountain Jews were a warrior people. Not every man carried a weapon. In the Caucasus, a dagger could be part of traditional male dress, a symbol of status, and an element of local material culture. And that raises a question. If the clothing barely reveals that a man is Jewish, what does? To see it, we have to leave the street and enter the home. Imagine a family preparing for the Sabbath or a holiday. People who know the dietary laws, the religious calendar, and the prayers. The Caucasian appearance does not disappear. Alongside it, another system of identity becomes visible. Mountain Jews had synagogues and organized communal life. In Darbent, one of the most important centers of the community, the well-known Kele Numaz synagogue appeared in the early 20th century. So the formula, Caucasian on the outside, Jewish on the inside, is too simplistic. Jewish life had public institutions as well. But the real surprise begins when the man in the photograph starts speaking. Imagine that you expect to hear Yiddish. Instead, you hear a language that sounds completely different. It is Juhuri, also known as Judeo-Tat. It belongs to the Iranian branch of languages and developed through close contact with the languages of the Eastern and Northern Caucasus. It also contains a significant layer of Hebrew and Aramaic vocabulary. At this point, the familiar picture of Jewish life in the Russian Empire finally cracks. The Jewish world was not only Russian-speaking and Yiddish-speaking. In the Caucasus, there was a Jewish culture speaking a language of Iranian origin. And this fact opens the next door. Where did these Jews actually come from? There are ancient traditions about the community's early origins, along with theories claiming that Persian rulers sent Jewish military settlers to guard their northern frontiers. After seeing a photograph of a Jewish man with a dagger, that theory sounds almost perfect, which is exactly why caution is necessary. Linguistic research does not allow us to simply declare the Mountain Jews direct descendants of Sasanian military colonists. Researchers studying the language associate significant migrations of Jewish populations from Iran into Transcaucasia and the Eastern and Northern Caucasus with later periods, especially the era following the Mongol conquests and the Safavid period. Instead of one heroic legend, a far more complicated picture emerges. Jewish groups connected to the Persian cultural and linguistic world spent centuries putting down roots in the Caucasus. They lived alongside Muslims and Christians and adopted regional forms of clothing, cuisine, music, and everyday behavior. And the question changes. If so much changes, where is the boundary?
Jewish diasporas have always absorbed elements of the surrounding culture.
Ashkenazi Jews absorbed elements of European culture. Sephardic Jews absorbed Iberian, Ottoman, and Mediterranean influences. The Caucasus was no exception. The wrong question is, why did these Jews not look like European Jews? The better question is different. How much can change within a people's culture before the feeling of "this is still us" disappears? Take food. Dishes, ingredients, and cooking methods travel from one neighboring community to another. Mountain Jews were naturally part of the Caucasian culinary world, but there was a boundary within the recipe: kashrut. A local dish could be adopted, ingredients could be changed, food could be prepared within a regional culinary tradition, but Jewish dietary laws determined what was permitted and which combinations were allowed. That gives us a model for this entire story. Borrow, adapt, preserve the boundary. The same pattern can be seen in music, weddings, and family life. A melody may sound Caucasian. Festive clothing may resemble that of neighboring peoples. Ideas about hospitality and family authority may be deeply regional. But the calendar still follows Jewish holidays. The synagogue remains a center of communal life. The family continues to transmit memory. We have reached the halfway point of this story. If the central question now seems deeper than simply Jews with daggers, tell us in the comments which fact surprised you the most, and support the video with a like. And the language, Iranian in origin, becomes a distinct Jewish linguistic variety. Now we can look at the dagger again. At the beginning, it appeared to be the main contradiction: a Jew with a dagger. Now the contradiction disappears. It is not proof of militarism. It is evidence of deep belonging to the Caucasus. A mountain Jew could wear regional clothing and speak a language of Iranian origin without believing that preserving Jewish identity required looking like someone from Vilna or Odessa. But then a new government arrives. After the revolution, the Soviet state began redefining language, nationality, and religion. During the 1920s, it simultaneously placed pressure on religious institutions while supporting secular minority cultures. For mountain Jews, this created a paradox. Their language gained schools, newspapers, books, and secular Soviet literature. But the Hebrew script was replaced by the Latin alphabet in 1929, and approximately a decade later by Cyrillic. Within a single generation, the language remained the language of the same community, but the state changed its appearance on paper twice. At the same time, religious life came under pressure from the broader Soviet anti-religious campaign. The synagogue became an institution that the state could restrict or close. And here, the original question changes completely. Earlier, a neighbor might have said, "You dress like me." Now the state asked, "But what exactly should we call you? Jew? Mountain Jew? Tat?" Within the Soviet system, nationality appeared in censuses, official documents, schools, and state ethnography. This became especially sensitive in Dagestan. Beginning in the 1960s, some activists promoted a policy scholars describe as Tatization. Mountain Jews were presented not as a Jewish ethnic group, but as Tats, and people were encouraged to register under that official category. This was no longer cultural borrowing from below. It was an attempt at definition from above. For centuries, mountain Jews themselves had decided how to combine the world around them with their own traditions. Soviet bureaucracy tried to give that combination an official name. And only now can we fully answer the question posed at the beginning. How could a community change so much without disappearing? Not because it lived in isolation, quite the opposite. Mountain Jews absorbed the outward appearance of the Caucasus, its cuisine, music, everyday customs, an Iranian linguistic foundation, and local codes of behavior. But borrowing did not mean assimilation. The boundary was preserved through religion, family, community, synagogue, calendar, memory, and through the fact that even the borrowed language became a distinct Jewish language. The secret was not refusing to become Caucasian. The secret was becoming Caucasian in their own way, a Jewish way. And that matters more than any photograph featuring a weapon. The Caucasian part was not simply a costume placed over real Jewishness, and the Jewish part was not an untouched core that the Caucasus never influenced. The two changed each other. That is how a distinct mountain Jewish culture emerged. The Soviet Union then added another layer: the Russian language, new schools, new writing systems, secular institutions, pressure on religion, and official disputes over what the community should even be called. If there are a few things worth remembering, they are simple. Mountain Jews are a distinct Jewish ethno-linguistic community of the Caucasus, not a branch of Ashkenazi, Georgian, or Bukharan Jewry. Their traditional language, Juhuri, belongs to the Iranian language group. Its Jewish script was replaced during the Soviet period, first by Latin and then by Cyrillic. And the dispute surrounding the word tat demonstrates how dangerous it can be to treat a government category or a linguistic label as a complete answer to the question of identity. Now let us return to the old photograph. The papakha, the Caucasian clothing, the dagger. If you focus on only one detail, it seems like a mystery. But the real mystery was never hanging from the man's belt. It was how someone could speak a language of Iranian origin, look Caucasian, live among the Muslim and Christian peoples of the Caucasus, pass through the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union, and still pass on to his children the memory that their family was Jewish. The dagger makes the photograph unusual. But the story of the mountain Jews matters not because they were Jews with daggers. It shows that a culture can change in almost everything visible and still preserve a line that it considers its own. Mountain Jews survived not because the Caucasus failed to change them. They survived because they learned how to change without surrendering the final word on who they were. If you watched all the way to the end, write the code word Juhuri in the comments. And if stories like this matter to you, subscribe and share this video with people who still imagine Jewish history as something far more uniform than it really was.